Maureen Jimenez.
Brian Martino.
Okay, sorry, I don't have my diligent thing. Okay, so can we approve the minutes? What do I have to say? All right, first we're gonna have an open hearing about the public safety plan. Is there a presentation? Okay, sorry. Okay, so Ms. Cahan's going to go over the safety plan.
Tonight, we are having a public hearing on the district-wide safety plan. As per Commissioner Regulation Part 155.17, school districts are required to develop district-wide school safety plans in alignment with building-level emergency response plans. A district-wide safety plan is a comprehensive and strategic framework designed to ensure the safety and well-being of students, staff, and visitors to all schools within the district. The plan outlines procedures for preventing, responding to, and recovering from emergencies such as natural disasters and medical emergencies. According to the same regulation, a public hearing must be held to present the new plan. The public hearing for the district-wide safety plan will be held for 30 days. The draft of the 2025-26 plan was made available on the district website on July 21st and can be reviewed until August 20th when it is adopted by the Board of Education. Any questions or comments should be emailed to the district clerk at ijohnson@glencoveschools.org. This is the website here, so a pop-up is coming up where you can link directly to the safety plan, or you can also access it by going to district plans and then district safety plan 25-26.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to the approval of the minutes. Right, Ida? Okay. So we have two meetings from July 2nd. We have the regular meeting and the reorganization meeting. Can I get a motion? Maria? Any questions or comments? Leah? Sorry. All in favor? 7. Okay. 6. This is not my day today. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Moving on to Audit Committee. Ms. Gahan.
The Office of the State Controller has completed their risk assessment audit and have decided to focus on the district's management of employee network user accounts and permissions. Their field work has started and should continue through the end of the summer. Preliminary work has started to complete the annual financial statements, and our external auditors, O'Connor Davies, will be on site the week of August 11th.
Thank you. Mr. DiNapoli, can you go over the Policy Committee?
Policy Committee met recently last week, and we're going to be discussing later this evening under new business the two policies that we met and discussed last week. Extreme heat condition days, as well as students and personal devices.
Okay, thank you. Education Committee.
Education Committee has not met as of yet, but we are in process.
Okay, great. And Facilities Report.
At Daisy, the HVAC units were delivered and moved to the roof of the addition. Framing of the classrooms are about 75% complete, and parking lot demolition is underway. Construction in the high school science rooms, the cafeteria, and the curtain wall are underway and making great progress. About 75% of the west curtain wall is complete, and all the work there should be done by the end of the week. Around 50% of the east curtain wall is complete. Demolition is finished in the science room, and framing has been done in all but 3 of the rooms. The science room is on the screen. The majority of the furniture has been delivered, with the remaining scheduled for delivery in the next week. In the cafeteria, the holes have been cut into the floor for the plumbing for the new serving lines. And then lastly, in the middle school 1910 building, the ceilings and plumbing work in the second floor bathrooms are complete and tile work began today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Doshner, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So my superintendent's report, I will start by just highlighting some of our instructional highlights from the summer. We are well underway in our summer academic program. This is a program that serves our K through 5 students. It provides instruction in both ELA and mathematics. As you can see, the students were learning even from the first day. We have our wonderfully talented teachers who are the teachers for the summer program. So they transition with students into the summer. They teach for about half of the day. And this program is led by both Ms. Gerasi and Ms. R. Carfora. And we're very proud of the program. We are now in, the 4th year of doing this. And we just wanted to share with the community because not always do you get to see into the classrooms and the smiling faces of our students and our teachers working together. We also are proud of our extended school year program. This program is for our K through 8 students. It provides instruction to prevent substantial regression as determined by the committee meeting of special education. So here you can see our students engaged with dance instructor that came to visit them and also with the district dentist. It provided them with an opportunity to learn some real life skills that they can, incorporate into their daily lives, such as healthy habits and living that we had for the first week of the program. This was something that I mentioned at the last Board of Education meeting. Us, along with the rest of New York State, have to engage in the pre-K through 3rd grade literacy attestation process. That is a process whereby we need to look at our curriculum very closely and make sure that it hits the big 6 that the state prescribes we need to hit for our literacy curriculum. So I shared this timeline with everyone last time as well. Back in May, we started having conversations and laid out a timeline and a plan for how we were going to approach this. We have checked off all of these components. So we had an initial discussion. We also went to a BOCES training that was offered for all districts. It was part of a literacy think tank that we had on the science of reading. We continued work this summer with our literacy coaches, Ms. Carfora and Ms. Russo, and this work is led by Ms. Schaefer, who is our ELA coordinator for the district. We also continued our work last week, July 10th. We had a group of our teachers, and you can see them here, join us from the 2K-2 buildings, as well as a pre-K representative as well. And they really looked at the attestation document that we have to fill for the state in the New York State portal. And they looked at it very carefully and really dove into to understand where our curriculum meets the needs of our students and how it specifically aligns to the document. The next part that we would like to engage in is an invitation to our entire staff for August 19th to join us. Obviously, it would be a voluntary basis, but anybody that wants to hear what our process was like and really look at our literacy attestation, our staff members would be able to participate. We will open it to the Board of Education, and we will also open it to PTA representatives. We're working on an invitation to share with the PTAs, so we have PTA representation as well. We have to submit this by September 1st, so once it is submitted and in the portal, we will definitely think about sharing it out to the entire community as perhaps a Board of Education presentation in the fall. One thing that Ms. Kahan didn't mention, just because we were in the official public hearing, that I wanted to highlight is that as part of our safety improvements for the district, we have contracted with a consulting group called Altaris. It is a consulting group that serves many districts on Long Island and also across New York State. They are a group that provide a wealth of knowledge and support for districts as they look to refine their safety practices. This was something that the board really felt strongly about and wanted to make sure that was approved for the next school year. So we have the consultant starting to work with us on August 4th. He begins. This is something that's going to make our safety be more robust. The person will engage with our administrators and provide additional safety training and safety alignment so that we can be consistent with our practices and really offering our staff and our students the real, important feeling of safety. In addition, the individual would also be available to do a community-wide presentation on the safety initiatives of the district and sharing best practices as well. So that could be another Board of Education presentation in the fall. I wanted to just highlight that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, welcome Ryan, our new student member. It's your turn for the report.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Martino, and I am honored to serve as the senior class president for the class of 2025. Before I get started, I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I'm a member of our school's golf team and have served as the team captain for the past 3 years. I wanted to run for this position because I had new ideas and wanted to see change take place. I am very interested in math and plan to major in finance in college. This year will be a unique one for all of us due to the new bell-to-bell cell phone policy, which prohibits the use of cell phones and personal laptops in school under any circumstances. The only devices allowed are Chromebooks. This is going to take some time to adjust to, and I want you to know that we are still figuring out the best way to handle this change. To the students, if you have any questions or ideas, feel free to reach out to me. Moving on to school sports, high school football registration is already open. Registration for all other fall sports will begin on July 25th through final forms online. I encourage everyone to get involved in athletics or other extracurricular activities, as they're a great way to make the most of your high school experience. That is all. Thank you guys for your time, and I look forward to the year ahead.
Thanks. We look
Thank
forward to
you.
hearing your input. Okay, so now we will go into our first public participation. This is on agenda items only. This is not to be a discussion. We take your questions and concerns seriously. We will respond to your concerns at a future meeting, probably the next meeting, once we're able to get all of the information to research and give you a thought-out response. And we're not allowed to speak about any school personnel or any individual students. And each speaker can have 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Go ahead, ding me in. I'm Caroline Dilgard-Clark. I have 2 kids in the district and 1 recent graduate. I read the safety report. Thank you very much for posting that. I think, and I am biased, I think it was a little light in the medical emergency, which I understand that those are included under other emergent events. I don't have specific suggestions to change the safety report, but I would like to give some suggestions to consider to put into practice. I knew this was going to be hard. I didn't expect it to be this hard, so I may get emotional, but I'm standing. I think it is really important that we educate the public on the location and the use of AEDs in public places. I was happy to hear that the consultant may be able to assist with that. I read in the safety plan that at the beginning of large public group gatherings that the leader of the gathering should make an announcement. I know we do that at concerts and plays. I think that announcement should include the location of the AED. I think it's also important to educate the students, the staff, the teachers, the administrators, people who are in the building regularly. not just on the location of AEDs, but if there's anything we can do to encourage people to learn CPR, if that's something we can incorporate in our PE classes or our health classes. And finally, I think that there must be a better way we can communicate directly with the police and the EMS here in Glen Cove. The cell service in the buildings, and all the buildings are not great. As a city in Glen Cove, dialing 911 can add time to the response of emergency personnel. And I would like to see if there's, even if we post the telephone number for the police, somewhere where people can easily see it. So why do I care so much about this? Well, I care about it from my own personal view, but if you research sudden cardiac arrest, you'll learn that it is the top cause of death among student athletes. If an AED is used in the first 3 minutes, there's an 85% survival rate. Every minute after that, the survival rate goes down by 10%. Out of the 350,000 Americans who suffer sudden cardiac arrest, there's a 10% survival rate nationally. So the numbers are not great. Those numbers are for people who suffer outside of the hospital. If I could just have one more minute, because I think this is the most important part. If you had asked me a few years ago about using an AED, I would be terrified to use it. But the machines now are designed for anyone to use. And while I wasn't aware at the time, I understand that anyone, students, adults, can use these machines, that they give step-by-step instructions. They will not deliver a shock unless there's a shockable rhythm. And for those of you here or listening at home who don't know, that 13 months ago I was standing right here when I went into sudden cardiac arrest. And the only reason that I am alive today is Dr. Ramo and the other people on this board who jumped in. They were able to perform CPR, Ida, and a student who went and got the AED machine. And I don't know all the details because I was clinically not with you guys anymore. But the reason I don't have neurological damage and the reason I'm able to be here today is that AED was applied within a few minutes and CPR was given continuously until the EMS arrived. And I think sometimes as a member of the public or even as a parent, we think, not in my small town. This wouldn't happen to us. Like, we're working on the safety plan. Why are we worried about these catastrophic events when there's little things like leaky roofs that affect our students day to day? But this can happen to us. It happened to me. And reading about students, even students on Long Island, the stats are something hard to believe, that every 3 days a student dies of cardiac arrest. I mean, this is something that affects our schools. It affects our kids, and we should be concerned about. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. I think we're going in a great direction. And again, I'm completely biased. I think that we could be doing more to educate people on the use of AEDs and CPR. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And I agree, I think everyone should get CPR certified. But, are there any other questions or comments? Okay. So now we'll move on to, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Can I just say something about calling 911 versus 676-1000 for us Glen Covers that have learned since we were young that that's what you call? Guys, clarify if I'm wrong, but I do remember having a conversation after that incident that we are to call 911, not 676-1000. We are to call 911. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So,
Because it doesn't take more time. And the other thing that I was told, because I have a lot of friends who are police officers and first responders that are all my neighbors, and they said specifically, because I called, they said that when you call, especially in a school building, you need to tell them exactly where you are and tell them specifically what's happening. Because if you just say, oh, someone's not breathing or someone's, like, they don't take everything as seriously as like a heart issue.
So I was one of the
Which is
people
crazy.
who met with the police officers and Dr. Rihanna after the incident. And they called from her office. They did both 911 and the local number. And they said it's better to call 911 because it's a touch screen where they can transfer to the appropriate, the fire department or EMS or whoever needs to be dispatched. Where if you call the number, they have to pick up a phone and call the other department. So it was faster calling 911, but it did go to Nassau first before it went to Glen Cove. So there was that. The other thing is that I suggested was to, when you're on with 911 or whichever emergency service, to stay on the line because the status of the person can change at any moment. And while someone may have just appeared to have fainted, that might not be what's actually happening. So being able to say, no, now we're starting CPR, or no, this is happening, or whatever, you're able to give moment-to-moment status reports, as opposed to if you hang up, you have to call back, and that's not helpful. So staying on the line is very helpful.
When I was younger, I worked for the Huntington Manor First Aid Squad. And going through 911, from what I know, it does take longer because this is a city, so they do have to go through Nassau County. But in other towns, it goes directly to the first aid place where they can dispatch the ambulance from there. So maybe because it's a city, it's a little different. I'm not sure.
We will, gather more information, and then we will have like an update at the next board meeting with like information directly from the police. And maybe we'll have them come and do a presentation so that everyone can hear the same message at once. Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Susan Yazewski. I'm at 45 Sugar Maple Lane. And after listening to the last question, mine seems insignificant when it's a medical emergency. So, I just had some questions about the projects that are going on, the construction projects. So you mentioned DZ School, the high school science labs, and the cafeteria. Do you have project plans, and do you have defined requirements, and are you on budget? Everything, is it being done to specs, which is normal project management procedure? But I don't hear any of this when you're reporting.
So if you could give us all of your questions and concerns, we will just write them all down, and then if we need to respond to you, we will give you a call and give you all the responses. And we can also think about responding in a presentation at the next board meeting where we have all of the information presented for you. Go ahead. So you asked specifications.
Basically, my question is your projects on time, on budget, and to specs? And are there any changes after the project begins that are very costly? So you should be measuring all of these things and keeping track of them. My background is project management. So I'm just wanting to know where you're at.
So we can definitely provide an update in terms of whether we're on time, on budget, and to specs on the construction projects at Daisy and at the high school.
Right.
Are those it?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
The fence that was put up around the tennis courts, a lot of the people in the neighborhood have been upset that they cannot have access to the tennis courts to enjoy them during daytime hours, which are non-school hours. cost to put up that 20-foot-high fence all around that we've never had before. And a lot of people think we pay taxes, we pay the school taxes, that tennis courts and things maybe should be available. I do know, I talked to the police department, and they said there were homeless people who were sleeping there. But why don't we deal with the homeless without penalizing the rest of the people of Glen Cove who would like to use the tennis courts? You can open them up in the morning and close them at the end of the day so that people could actually use them. So, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so moving on to instructional report.
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, I ask the Board of Education to approve Agenda Item 7 on the instructional report, A, Committee on Special Education, and B, Committee on Preschool Special Education.
Can I get a motion? Megan and Maureen, any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? 6. Business affairs.
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, I ask the Board of Education to approve Agenda Item 8A, Finance, numbers 1 and 2.
Can I get a motion? Sorry. Leah and Brett. Questions or comments? All in favor? 6.
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, I ask the Board of Education to approve Agenda Item 8B, Operations, numbers 1 through 9.
Can I get a motion? Maria and Brett. Any questions, comments? All in favor? 6. Okay, personnel.
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, I ask the Board of Education to approve Agenda Item 9A, Certified, numbers 1 through 12.
Can I get a motion? Maureen and Megan. Questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? 6.
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, I ask the Board of Education to approve Agenda Item 9B, Classified, numbers 1 through 9.
Can I get a motion? Brett and Maria. Questions or comments? All in favor? 6.
If I may, one of our newer team members is in the audience tonight, so we'd like to welcome one of our newer teachers who's going to be joining our science department, Brendan Fraco, who's in attendance tonight. Welcome, Brendan. Welcome to the Glen Cove City School District team.
Welcome. Okay. We don't have any unfinished business, so new business. We have 2 first readings of policies. Do you want to speak about them?
Sure. I'm going to actually, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. I know it's a little bit different having slides connected to policy updates, but there's a lot of information regarding the update that New York State is requiring school districts to carry out in regard to students and personal electronic devices. So since it's a very popular topic, we want to take an opportunity just to give context in terms of the updates that are part of the policy being presented tonight. So this is not a new policy for the Glen Cove City School District. I know for some districts it may be a new policy. For our district, it's really an update to an existing policy that already exists. Just to kind of give some background information, the policy committee has been aware that the state has been having conversations throughout this year, just really discussing updates that would be required or that wanted to be required in relation to students and personal devices at the school and on school grounds. As a policy, we were tracking the different proposals that were out there. So Even in May, before May 9th, these were some of the different proposals that were out there. The governor's proposal, really was looking at prohibiting the use from bell to bell for all internet-enabled devices. The Senate was looking at prohibiting such devices just during instructional time and allowing school districts to have the opportunity to make up a plan as to allowing devices during non-instructional time. Assembly was really looking at leaving it up to local school districts to have their plan, which was in effect prior to this new policy requirement that was part of the May 9th budget, which takes me to what the update requires all school districts to include, either in their existing policy or the new policy. So when the state budget came out, New York State passed the new law, Education Law 2803, requiring all school districts and BOCES to adopt an updated policy restricting student use of internet-enabled devices during the school day and on school grounds. I want to kind of go over some definitions just to make sure that we all have a shared understanding of what those terms mean. So school day is every instructional day during all instructional time and non-instructional time. So the bell-to-bell includes homeroom periods, lunch, recess, study halls, passing time. It's not just inside the classes, it's the entirety of the school day. Internet-enabled devices, it's not just a cell phone, it's a personal laptop, it's tablet, smartwatch, any other device capable of connecting to the internet or enabling or allowing a user to access content on the internet, including social media applications. School grounds, definition behind school grounds in regarding to this policy is including any building structure, athletic playing fields, playgrounds, or land contained within the boundary of the school district. The rationale from New York State regarding this update really is centered on distractions to the school environment, how personal devices have been seen as to diminishing social connections, negatively impacting student engagements, facilitating bullying and violent incidents, negatively affecting mental health, and can be dangerous in emergency situations, giving out misinformation. There are exceptions that still exist within this policy. That's important to outline, and that is still included within this first read. So the district must allow student use of internet-enabled devices when required by law. For example, a student's individualized education program or a 504 plan. The state is also requiring that the district permits the use in the following additional cases: healthcare needs, translation services, caregiving responsibilities. In those aspects, the parent is required to reach out to the administrator to request looking into whether or not their child is permitted under one of those very specific and personalized cases. There's requirements from the district's end that needs to be included in the policy, and that is included in the first reading of the policy that's being presented tonight. So the policy must clearly prohibit student use of internet-enabled devices. It must be posted on the district website once approved. A parent or student has the right, upon request, to have it translated in any one of the 12 most commonly spoken languages. The policy must include one or more methods for parents to contact the student during the school day. The policy outlines methods for on-site storage to allow students to store their devices during the day. And beginning September 1st of 2026 and annually thereafter, the districts are required to post a report on the policy's enforcement. Once we had an understanding from the policy committee standpoint as to what the requirements of this policy was going to be defined by the state, the biggest piece was having stakeholder input and having stakeholders have the opportunity to give their feedback and their ideas within what items for discussion were really left up to the district. Because once May 9th came out, there was not a lot of discussion or wiggle room that districts really had within this policy, but there were some areas that we really had to make decisions on. So part of that advisory team, the policy committee asked for an advisory team to be put together. Part of the advisory team included parents, teachers, administrators, both from the elementary level and from the secondary level. I know Mr. Hudson also shared his discussions with the Student Senate to share conversations and feedback that he received from students at the high school level regarding the policy that was forthcoming and everyone was aware was going to be happening later or for the 25-26 school year. Topics for discussion for the advisory committee really focused on storage. What were we going to be putting in our policy in regarding to storing devices? The devices itself that were going to be included, the communication for parents and students, and the understanding and accountability. So within the first reading of the policy, to really speak about the storage, we really broke it down at the K-2 level, the 3-5 level, and then the 6-12 at the secondary level. So at the K-2 level, we're going to be following the same practice that has been the practice these last years with the current policy that we had in place, where students are not permitted to bring the devices with them to the school and to the building. At the 3-5 level, students are discouraged from bringing the devices to school. If a device is brought to the school, it must be silenced and kept in the classroom's designated storage space. For example, if a classroom has a personal cubby, or if the storage space is in a recessed portion of the corner of the classroom, it needs to be stored and silenced in that area for the entirety of the school day. At the secondary levels, we have our lockers, and students' devices must be silenced and stored in student lockers. Devices that we discussed were the devices that are required according to this policy by New York State. Again, any device that can connect to the internet does not just have to be a cell phone. Any other personal devices. The other devices that are part of this policy that were discussed in terms of the rationale regarding distractions and student engagement speaks to wired or wireless headphones, earbuds, e-readers, voice recorders, any music device, fitness trackers. All those devices must be silenced and stored in accordance with the storage procedures outlined for each of those designated grade levels. In regard to communication for parents and students, the policy includes very specific directions as to how parents can communicate and reach their students at the building level, and then vice versa. It was optional for our policy to have language regarding how students can reach their parents, but we felt as a policy and as an advisory team that it was important to include that in the language of the policy. So parents are able to contact their children by calling the school office of the respective school building, and then students may contact their parents by using school phones located in designated areas in the school building identified for student communication. And we left that to be more open-ended for building administrators to be able to identify those areas, because it may not just have to be the main office. Maybe there's a spot in the guidance office, maybe there's a spot next to security. We wanted building administrators to have that opportunity to communicate with students where those designated areas would be. And then the understanding and accountability, that was required by New York State to talk about what does enforcement and consequences look like. Both the advisory team and the policy committee really valued an approach where students are put in a position to really understand, again, the reason why behind this policy. So if students who are out of compliance with the policy, the device will be collected and held in the school office until the end of the school day. The parent would be notified, and the parent must retrieve the device. For repeated instances, the district will take a progressive approach. Such consequences can be utilized from the district's code of conduct, including but not limited to reflective assignments on the detrimental impact of social media on mental health, smartphones in school or other relevant topics, parent and student meetings, detention, in-school suspension, and exclusion from extracurricular activities are included in that series. But again, the approach that would be taken is more of a progressive approach, because the main goal is for students to really understand the rationale and the why behind the policy that's being required as part of this update. And that's a lot of information regarding the student personal devices policy, but we felt that it was important to put together in a presentation to just really show the thought that went into this policy, both from the advisory team as well as from the policy committee. The other policy that is part of a first read for tonight is also a new policy that New York State is requiring all districts to have as part of their policy manual. And that policy is in relation to extreme heat condition days, especially with the weather changing. School days are becoming hotter between June and between September. New York State wants school districts to make sure that they have in their policy specific strategies that the district is holding itself to follow on days that are coded as extreme heat days. The definition of extreme heat days are days where spaces are above 82 degrees and above 88 degrees. So once a space within the school building hits 82 degrees and above, that policy spells out the strategies that the district would take. If it's 88 degrees or above, it also outlines and identifies the strategies that the school districts would take to make sure that students and staff are in a cooler space outside of that instructional space once it hits that 88-degree threshold. There are specifics in regard to how a space is measured in regard to temperature and where in that space it's measured in regard to temperature. But again, the purpose and the intent from New York State is just to make sure that there's a shared understanding among all districts in New York State regarding what does extreme heat look like in instructional spaces and what is that defined and what are the approaches that the district really truly needs to take. So those are both policies that are up for first read tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments about the policies or anything?
Well, I just think that we need to start having conversations about perhaps another bond for air conditioning. In the past, we've talked about every building, which is upwards of $50–60 million, which is a lot to swallow. So maybe we can talk about having it in particular areas or particular buildings and think about where it's really lacking. I know that's probably everywhere. Yeah, it's really difficult to teach and to learn when it's hot, even when you have an air conditioner going. We know it doesn't always work the way we want it to. So this is really something that I think I'd like to talk about and push forward.
So I just wanted to say if in the discussions of regarding the heat policy, if Andrew, if you like in discussing it with other districts or, you know, in this world of all the districts facing this new policy and how to implement it, if there was a discussion about the issue, I shouldn't say issue, but the fact that we always have quote unquote snow days factored into calendars, but like we haven't used one in a few years, but now we have, you know, hopefully not again, but flooding from giant rainstorms or heat events like reaching 100 degrees in June. So what if there's been a discussion widely about maybe starting to use those days as, you know, in lieu of maybe snow?
I would say those discussions are in infancy stage. They're starting to happen now, and I think they're going to start to really ramp up as we get into the 25-26 school year among districts. Especially we have, I know our legal conference that we usually have among our group when it comes into September, October, and I think that's going to be something that is probably going to be a topic of discussion. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, like, and when they're called snow contingency days on the calendar, I don't think we should call them that anymore. They should be
No,
called, you know,
extreme weather.
extreme weather days and use them as we see fit or as they see fit.
Oh, it's hard at the beginning of the year because you don't know what the rest of the year is going to be like. But
what's
at
to
the end
come.
of the year, there were districts that closed in June and did half days because of the hot weather. So
Right.
it's probably going to be more of a reality.
Yeah, I could see how the September days become problematic. I mean, even like, you know, you had a couple like real hot weeks in May, and then it's like, well, we don't know what's going to come in a month.
Yeah.
But obviously, we'll see what, you know, what the trends are, especially amongst the state and everything else.
No, but I agree, Leah. I think that we have to start considering either smaller bonds and just try to do a little at a time, or I don't know. we're gonna have to start talking about this stuff. Okay, so we'll have our second reading for the heat at our next meeting, and then the devices, we are having another meeting on Friday, correct? And we will vote on it then. Okay. So any board comments? Brett, go ahead.
I wanted to, excuse me, ask about the third grade swim program. I had asked Dr. Dashner regarding the third grade swim program. I would like to understand why it has not been continued, or what have been the obstacles to getting it going again, and if there has been any discussion to get it going again.
Sure. So the third grade swim program, for some of our community members who might not know, is a program that we had in place for a number of years. It was in partnership with the YMCA, and it happened at the third grade at both Landing and Connolly School. The program was a 6-week program that allowed students to be bused from the schools. So if you were at Landing, you would alternate whether you were doing Connolly was second, and then the next year you would flip-flop. And so for 6 weeks, students would leave at around, I think, 9 in the morning and would be bused to the YMCA. There would be 2 sessions. So from 9:30 to 10:55 would be one session, and then the second session would be afterwards. It would be 2 sessions because the bus would only bring half of the third grade at a time. And then all the third grade teachers would join in the swim program, and they would be there to supervise students changing in the locker rooms, and then the teachers would be seated at the bleachers in the YMCA while the swim instructors would work with the students. When I took over as the principal of Landing in 2019 in April, the program had already finished. So when I began officially September of 2019, it was time for it to start again. One of my concerns when I knew that I had to put this in place, and this was something that was important to the community, was the fact that we only had one male teacher at Landing. Connolly was a little bit different at the time, but only one male teacher, and at the time only one male one-to-one monitor. So the one-to-one monitor I assigned to the swim program for the duration of the program, and I had to then replace him as he supervised the student one-to-one. The one male teacher is the stream teacher at Landing, and so he had to then be at the program for the entire time. So that was a concern to me because it meant that students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th would miss stream during that Friday morning. So it didn't matter that they were not in 3rd grade, they wouldn't have stream, and you would have like a coverage, a substitute teacher who would cover for the stream teacher. So at that time, I asked Dr. Rihanna if she could allow for one of the high school teachers to cover so that I could have the supervision in the boys' bathroom at the YMCA, and I wouldn't have to pull the stream teacher for the duration of the 6 weeks. And I suggested to use one of our coaches here so that there would be the familiarity with boys changing, as some teachers might not feel comfortable with that. And so we were able to have one of the teachers who was a coach at the high school, cover for the swim program at Landing, and that's how we got through it in 2019. Very shortly thereafter, March 2020, we closed due to the pandemic, and the swim program was basically placed on a hiatus. One of the concerns, in addition to the lack of instruction that we found due to the stream teacher having to cover the swim program, was also the supervision in the locker rooms. So students were in the locker room, and the general public was also in the locker rooms because it's not only the time for the Glen Cove School District to use the locker rooms. So that caused, some students to, see other individuals unclothed at the time. And, that was just part of what that was like. And then, in addition, some students reported years later when they had actually been at Connolly before they had moved back to Landing. So it's a little bit confusing. Some of our students might move across town, and then we have them at Landing, and later on we'll have them at Connolly, and sometimes they come back. They would report that there were some discipline issues that happened, some inappropriate behavior. So the lack of supervision in the locker rooms and then the loss of instructional time kind of made it so that the swim program was never started again once COVID was over. So I hope that gives an explanation of kind of everything that happened before and where we are now. In terms of restarting the program, I know that was a follow-up question. It would have to be a conversation as to, what the district is prioritizing. I understand that it's a great opportunity for our students to have the exposure, but that's something that I would want to hear from the board in terms of what we would want to do and what we're envisioning for the program to look like. Thank you.
I think that swimming is extremely important, and I think it's something that all kids should learn because drowning is a huge issue amongst kids. So that being said, I'm a little nervous about federal funding and our ability to support the program long-term. And I don't want to take away from STREAM to give our kids just 6 weeks of a swim program because I feel like it's not going to, I think it's going to be hard for kids to really get a lot out of that with only 6 weeks if we're only doing it in 3rd grade. So I think I'm worried about it financially and what it would take away from the curriculum. Those are my concerns, but I think that figuring out if we could afford it, that's one thing, but, and if we could work it in, I think ideally if we could get, if there was like a city pool where the kids could get free swim lessons if they were residents, that would be the best. But until that happens, maybe we could work out some kind of deal with the Y that they get discounted lessons, or I don't know, there could be a club after. Because I think it's going to be really hard to make this a sustainable program again with the current constraints. But Maureen?
I'm really glad to have this conversation because I do think that it was something that a lot of people really loved about our schools. And I really understand, mostly as a parent who used the YMCA myself, the safety issues, like what the kids are being exposed to by the community. And the no fault, that's just how adults use locker rooms. I think that was a pretty big challenge, and I understand that. And we kind of lost sight of it for a while. So I'm aware that in Garden City, they have a swim curriculum that promotes water safety. I don't know the details, but I just remember reading about it years ago, that a student in the community passed away, drowned at the ocean or something. So in Garden City, they have some sort of swim-based curriculum. So I imagine that kids aren't learning how to swim in 6 weeks. Like, when your kids are in 3rd grade, a lot of times they are swimming in August, and then in May when you bring them back to the pool, they have to learn again. So I think the biggest thing from the YMCA for me was water safety. So if we could maybe figure out a way to incorporate water safety and awareness into the levels of the kids, and like not stop it just in the K through 5, but bringing that up to the upper grades. Because another issue that isn't just for the city, not just for the schools, but the city has a shortage of lifeguards. So maybe by the time we got to the high school, the kids in town who are lifeguard certified, they do it over Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, and February break. And Peter Foster at the YMCA is really great at making sure that when the kids are off from school, he has those classes if he can accommodate it, which is great. But maybe we can incorporate, that's how we could grow the curriculum to the later grades. And there could be something where the kids were getting lifeguard certified, and it would also benefit the city because they're in need of lifeguards. So we'd be giving our kids not only a life skill for themselves forever, but the city would benefit as well. So I don't know if maybe we want to just refocus the way we're looking at a swim program.
Yeah, that could definitely be an approach we take. Megan?
My one question is for Dr. Doshner. I don't know if you even remember this, but as far as, for instance, like staffing in the bathroom, in the locker rooms, where you had mentioned, okay, there was essentially 2 landing staff members that could be in the boys' locker room. So, but all the 3rd grade teachers went, so they're all presumably women. So there's like 4 or 5 of them. So, so was there any, like, we need X number of adults to X number of students in the locker room, or was it just like, it was just, if you're there, just go in and supervise, but we have 5 in here and 2 over here?
Yeah, so that was a big concern because we only had the one male teacher and then so again, I tried my best to provide
Right.
supervision, and through Dr. Rihanna's approval, we had somebody who also was allowed to, have the compensation and cover. But it wasn't like a full solution because, as you're saying, we have more female teachers who
Yeah.
could supervise in the locker room. So that was not equitable, but it was the best we could do to cover and make sure that the program was still running.
Just to add on also, I guess, similar to what Maureen's saying, I'd love to see this come back in some capacity. I don't know if it's that original form makes sense anymore. I really, honestly, I don't love the sharing locker rooms with the public. I just think it's like, I don't think that's a good idea. But I also think, we're trying to build a swim program, right? We have like a growing swim team with Carl Place and Locust Valley, and I just think it would be wonderful also to try and promote, that program also, because I know that that's a dedicated group of people as well.
And Angela, I'm sorry, you touched on it being maybe like an after-school club, like maybe we can look at that. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, like they have the teen night, right? Is that still a thing? I mean, I know these are elementary kids, but maybe there could be something where it's in place for younger kids.
And also, it also speaks to maybe if you do something that's not like mandatory, so to speak, I know it should be encouraged because of as a safety issue and it is important for children to be familiar with water, et cetera, like to have the experience. But in such a short period of time with so unfamiliar instructors and things like that, you are going to have a population of children that are just uncomfortable with this whole situation. And now we are also dealing with that situation, and it's just a lot to ask for some students. I don't know that it's worth it in that form.
Well, also not only how much time they're going to get from changing to the actual lesson, how much time are they getting in the water, and then how much time is it to change after? It's got to be a very small amount of time compared to the whole time that they're out of class.
Yeah, I think about the kids who are so fearful of water, right? I have one of those little people at my house and very fearful of water. So then you have, teachers and staff trying to deal with that. And then, you're missing instructional time, right? And then you're also putting teachers in a position where they're watching children try to change into bathing suits. I'm a teacher. I didn't sign up for that. I signed up to be in a classroom. So it
also
puts teachers in a really weird position. Like, we're told to be so cautious around children, and now we are in a locker room with them. And we know kids, 3rd graders, like, they do silly, funny things, right? They do whatever. And then what about the children who don't want to go? What happens to them? Where do they stay? Where do they go?
So, I had one of those kids. Yeah. She sat on the bench on the side. They weren't forcing the kids to go in. And I'm sure there would have to be a permission from the parents and all that anyways. I understand a lot of the concerns. And I'm not like it was always this way type of person, but I suspect a lot of these problems existed before, and it's like a 40-year-old program, and I think it was just something, I guess it wasn't totally unique if they have it in Garden City to Glen Cove, but we live on an island, and I think being focused like Maureen said, being focused on water safety and water instruction, it would be really good. So I was happy to hear that you were able to solve the problem in the past, and hopefully we can work towards that again.
Yeah, and maybe it's not going to look the way it did before, but maybe we'll be able to come up with some kind of solution that would give some kind of instruction to kids, but maybe it would be in the form of club or some other way, but hopefully we can figure out something. Does anyone have any other comments? Dr. Doshner, Leah, and I went to a law conference the other day, last week, I think. And it was about new regulations, health benefits, and how a lot of districts are, I'm going to get this so wrong, but like doing their own health plan and going away from the whatever they have before because it's getting so expensive. They also touched on immigration issues. And
I'm sorry, not to, you mean like health insurance plan?
health insurance plan,
Okay.
going away from traditional plans and basically coming up with their own plan.
Like self-insuring?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Thanks.
Sounds expensive.
Yes, but it's ultimately going to be cheaper than traditional insurance, but it sounds like it's risky
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't sound like the way to do it.
Okay.
But they were talking about how it's, if there's an issue, it could be more costly, but if there's not an issue, it's cheaper. So, but legally, it sounded like a headache. And then the last part was new court decisions and talking about specific cases. It was an interesting day.
Yeah, I haven't gone in a couple of years, so I was happy to go. One of the things that, I'm trying to read through my illegible notes, they talked about a policy, well, we talked a lot about the phone ban, we talked about the healthcare, extreme heat, some dual enrollment stuff, transportation with the zero emissions, universal school meals was something that came up. Oh, this is what I was going to say. In the 26-27 school year, school districts are going to be required to send home a water safety and like drowning prevention notice to all families. Yes, I know. I was trying to look through here as we were having the conversation, and I finally found it. Not this upcoming school year, but the following school year, which I thought was interesting. They talked about different drills, the shelter in place. They're going to call it hold in place now, which I have never heard of, hold in place. The immigration we talked about. And I guess that was it. It was really interesting, so I'm glad I went.
All right, any other comments? Okay, so we'll move on to our final public participation. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Name and address. That's really.
Adam Lorenzana, 34 Daniel Drive. Just a quick few points. I graduated Glen Cove 2010. I left for 15 years, college, working, master's, law school, met my wife, and much to the chagrin of my wife, I finally moved back. And when I was at this high school, I went to plenty of board meetings, not as a board member, so I hope that you really take advantage of the opportunity. I hope you voice the concerns of the students, and you get a lot out of this, and hopefully more than what you put in. I would have loved to be up there. I think it was very serendipitous that the initial public speaker spoke about the safety situation, and the situation that happened last year is truly just good to see you here, given what happened. But serendipitous in the sense that we talked about the personal device policy at the same meeting. So if these devices are going to be essentially locked away, and we think about this in the context of up on the football field or, back in the pit, have we explored, and if we haven't, maybe we can explore some of those blue light systems that exist on a lot of college campuses? Because if they can't have phones or devices in between practice or even on the walk out to the field, to the softball fields, and God forbid something happens, just some method to be able to communicate with authorities might go a very long way. That's in addition, I think, to the presence of the AEDs and whatever else might be available. I think that technology has kind of gone by the wayside. They were already kind of phasing it out when I was in college, which was a long time ago. But maybe those are still available and something that we can explore looking into, just given that we are 50 some odd acres. The third point, I know I'm running out of time, I had to do the math. I graduated in 2010. That means I was in Connolly School in like late 90s, early 2000s. I did that swim program, and that's still something that people talk about. And whether the logistics and the details are a bit different today, if Garden City's got it and they're totally landlocked, we're a waterfront community. And although the idea of a club, right, and after-school activity is not a bad one, we have to think about the students that probably wouldn't get any swim instruction outside of that, right? And so 6 weeks, once a week, it really isn't ideal. But I still have friends that started out, I will never forget, started out as guppies and ended up as sharks, right? I mean, that was literally what the names that we got, and we bragged about it. And our student population is not Garden City's, right? We don't have kids that are going to country clubs left and right and learning to swim there. So if we take that program away, we are taking away probably the most critical swimming educational opportunity that the students that need the most will ever have. And recognizing some of the issues, I think the locker room one, if I may have a few more minutes, or a minute, I think the locker room one is certainly a concerning one, but hopefully it is something we can work through, especially given the fact that you mentioned, Dr. Doshner, that Connolly didn't run into the same issues as Landing, so maybe that means kind of pulling staff across the schools, even if that doesn't necessarily fix the issue of what the students might see or do, given that they are in third grade, but maybe there's partitions. They are legitimate concerns that I think we need to address, but I don't think they are legitimate enough that it's worth pulling the rug out of what I think is an extremely valuable program for the neediest students in our community. So, thanks for your time, and good luck.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, my understanding of the Garden City program is not that they're getting in the pools. It's like a water safety program. I do know that when I went to Mineola, we had a swimming program. We went to the Denton Avenue pool. I'm pretty sure they don't have it anymore. You might want to ask them like how they transitioned out and how they met that need, if they did or didn't. But the Garden City program is like more education-based, not necessarily going to a pool as far as I know.
Hi, Alejandra Kusianovic, 51 Buckeye Road. I love the cell phone conversation, but I think that also, especially for middle school and high school kids, I don't have kids at that age, but I don't want to, just adults are so reliant on cell phones, and kids starting from kindergarten are seeing it like all day long. Like, I loved my teacher. We would get 100 pictures a week. That means that teachers are, using the phone, even if it's not an instructional time, but the kids are seeing that, and just, project that to older kids that are gonna, be like, why are you using the phone and I can't use it, So I think that that could be added into the conversation. For the temperature, how would parents find out what the temperature is in the classrooms? you know, if it hits that threshold, like, I don't know if it hits it in one classroom and not the other one. But, you know, how would parents find out? And in the meantime, while we figure out, you know, new ACs and stuff, right now we have some of these strategies of move kids from one classroom that doesn't have AC to another one that has AC. But the classrooms that have AC are not running at 70, right? They're like at 85. So when you move 20-something people into that classroom, it's going to then make it warmer. So then you have all of the kids from 2 classrooms in a hotter environment. So if in the meantime, I know that space is limited everywhere, but like different strategies need to be also worked out, just not shuffling kids to a room that has AC. That's it.
Thank you.
Can I just make a remark on the cell phone point with the elementaries? Because I agree, like, I have elementary school students, and I love getting all the pictures of them in, you know, that's how I know what they're doing, because they don't tell me anything. And so, but I agree, right, it sets the tone of, I never really thought of that, it sets the tone of, you know, this is like cell phone usage in classroom, and you're starting with 5-year-olds, and like, that's then what is, you know, used, or I don't want to say acceptable, but they're just what they're used to. And so I'm not suggesting that, like, we don't take pictures of, and the teachers don't send messages back with the pictures and information like that way, but it is an interesting point, like, has to be part of the conversation because it's part of the school culture with cell phones. Sorry.
Allison Fletcher, Glen Cove Teachers Association President. I promise this will be brief. I have summer school to teach tomorrow. This is really pertaining to the extreme hate. Maybe you can clarify this, because you had brought up emergency days. Is it feasible or not feasible to do half days, and how do they count? Is it not feasible due to seat time, due to transportation? What's the reasoning? Because I know a lot of schools in New Jersey do it. So that's my question.
We will include it at the next Board of Education meeting. So the question is it feasible to do half days for extreme heat, and whether they count for seat time or not? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other? Okay, can I get a motion to end the meeting? Maureen and Leah, all in favor? 6, I was trying. All right, have a good night, everybody. Thanks.